I want to remind you, FlashPoint Next Level starts January 30th and 31st at Lord of Hosts Church. Now, this event is only on the evenings there in Omaha. Speakers include Pastor Hank Kuhneman, myself, Tony Suarez, Lance Wallnow, and Rick Green, and who knows who might else show up. So all you got to do is go to fpnextlevel.com and let us know you're coming. All right, let's get into the interview. Here is Dr. Simone Gold. You know, you've heard this name before. America's frontline doctor burst on the scene during COVID. Dr. Simone Gold, thank you for coming by. Thank you for all that you're doing. Let's get an update. It's been a year since I've talked to you. Talk about what's happening.
For sure. So America's Frontline Doctors, we're pretty busy. We just submitted an amicus brief in the USA versus Skrmetti case, which is about the transgender mutilation of our children. That's a big deal.
Absolutely, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And we also just produced our first, a second movie actually, called whatisadoctor.org. Really, what is a doctor? Is a doctor somebody who's truth teller, a healer, reality-based, or is a doctor somebody who lies to you and offers you negative things like Dr. Fauci did? So whatisadoctor.org, we explore the lines that doctors crossed during the COVID years, and then we progressed to 2024 in the transgender ideology. Whatisadoctor.org, you'll love it.
Well, yeah, we should. We need to watch that. The whole thing is, we had some people on here earlier, like Chloe Cole, who came out and said she not only did she lose, friends, but the doctors themselves turned on her, who were supposed to be giving care, when she decided, like, this isn't what I want to do. She felt bullied into this whole thing, and
it's the medical industry it's shameful what has happened to doctors. My dad was a doctor. Being a doctor was honorable.
It was.
Now many doctors are using their knowledge really against patients who have less knowledge. We won't tolerate that. So America's Frontline Doctors, we have a lot of freedom doctors, a lot of independent thinkers. We say no to the insurance, we say no to the medical industrial complex, and we bring people like you, people like your viewers, the truth. One of those truths is whatisadoctor.org.
Okay, so they can see, is that documentary? It's out now?
It's a documentary, it's out now, and we're actually streaming it for free because it's so important that you see this and you become empowered.
Okay,
and
awesome.
Chloe, I believe Chloe has seen it. It's an outstanding film.
All right, whatisadoctor.org. All right, so go watch that.
Yeah.
We'll watch it.
Yeah.
We'll watch it. All right, goldcare.com. Last time we talked, it was that you were really just kind of rolling that out.
Exactly.
Talk about that.
That is the most exciting thing to come from the COVID years. So we saw doctors not put patients' best interests first. We absolutely saw the break in the doctor-patient relationship. Before 2020, we thought maybe a doctor was some were better, some were worse, but we never thought that they didn't care about their patient. And we saw undeniably that doctors did not care about their patients. They let them take lethal treatments. They didn't give them early treatments. They told them to stay home until they were blue. Unacceptable. So we Freedom Doctors got together and we launched a business, goldcare.com. Goldcare.com is national telemedicine all over the nation. We have doctors in every state.
Wow.
And how we use it is you come and you join. You become a member. Very low price, Gene. It's $10 a month, $20 for a family. And then you get access to all the education. We have webinars. We have lectures by some amazing experts. We have classes, nutrition classes and spirituality classes. And then if you need to see a doctor, you then pay as you go. It's very transparent. $100 for every 15 minutes, and you just book the amount of time you want with a like-minded Freedom doctor who's unbiased. Another thing we do is we put together naturopathic doctors and allopathic doctors.
Yeah.
We've got it all.
Oh, no, and you're not supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, so nobody told me. I don't listen very well to direction.
But that's amazing that you're
amazing.
Because it's been two competing tracks.
And by the way, that's mostly in America. That's not true in other nations. There were lawsuits that started they divided the naturopath doctors from prescription writing doctors. That division needs to stop. Sometimes you need a prescription, a lot less often than you think you need a prescription, and you need access to all the information to decide.
Yeah.
And then if you want to, we also want people to be prepared. We don't want you to have a pharmacist that tells you can't get this medicine. Absolutely not. Goldcare.com, we have preparedness prescription packs that you can buy, and then we mail them to you. I want you to have in your medicine cabinet hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, Zithromax, prednisone. I want you to have those medicines at home, so when you need it, nobody else can block you from it.
Oh, that's awesome. Goldcare.com. You don't have an excuse anymore. I think thank you for doing that. Because we meet people so many times that are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, They can't
This is the solution. And by the way, it is honestly your civic obligation. Anybody who's hearing my voice who knows your show, this is your civic obligation. The reason I'm doing this is twofold. One is you need a good doctor. You need to trust. But the other reason is the macro reason. I learned in 2021 that the people behind the vaccine mandates, the constricting, were the insurance companies. We're not talking Pfizer, Moderna. I'm saying that it was Kaiser, it was United Health Group, it was Blue Cross. It benefited them financially to force the mandates. It's a complicated reason, but we found that out in discovery. You as a freedom-fighting person, a person who's putting your voice out there, should not be carrying an insurance policy. Now, Medicare age is different, but average working class age people who believe as we believe, should not be carrying and paying for Blue Cross and Kaiser. We will show you a better way, and I'm going to shock you and everybody.
Come on.
I have not had health insurance for more than 10 years. Right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
You think, how could you live in America without health insurance? I will teach you how to do it responsibly. Goldcare.com.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, well, we need to talk more about this. Yeah, that's great. All right, so I got to go there. Let's talk about J6 and what happened to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of came through that. One of my favorite stories is watching you come out of your prison, with your hair and cornrows, and I'm like, look at that, dropping down, doing push-ups. I'm look at you. Let's talk about that experience and what it did for you.
Yeah, so, I think if the other side throws all this at you and they think they're going to destroy you, I think it's not true. I think you come back twice as strong. I'm really not afraid of anything at this point. I mean, most of us are afraid of jail, losing our freedom, and it's horrible, and it was a terrible experience. But you know what? I did it. So what are you going to threaten me with today? You're not going to scare me. It was terrible. It was selective persecution, selective prosecution by our government. Thank God that Trump is in office. We J6ers, the real J6ers, are going to be bringing lawsuit against the DOJ for having done this. DOJ, the FBI, and the Bureau of Prison for having done this. They violated our constitutional rights. They violated our civil rights. You remember that I'm a lawyer. The illegality, there were so many illegal things. The U.S. prosecutors lied during trials. The district court judges were heinous. They were convicting and the defendants in front of them before they were even hearing the stories. And I also wrote a book that's coming out in about 2 months. It's called Selective Persecution, and it uses my J6 story to explain kind of the infrastructure fascism that we have in our nation.
Wow. Let's just, that so many good things, goldcare.com and whatisadoctor.org. How did we get to this place in the medical community where we have such an issue with the doctors?
Yes, there's a few reasons, but a really straightforward one to understand, that my father, who was a doctor, was a small business owner. He was in practice for himself. During the 70s, 80s, certainly in the 70s, 80s, about 85% of doctors were self-employed. It was their own practice. So today it's flipped. Today about 85% of doctors are not self-employed. They are working for somebody else, typically a large hospital corporation, or it ends up down the line, it's really a large insurance company. Essentially, they're serving a corporate master. The problem is when the corporate master comes into conflict with what the patient needs. So the corporate master drives the paycheck. Right. If they had policies, if the corporation set down a policy, no ivermectin, no hydroxychloroquine, then the doctor didn't do it. So we need doctors to be small business owners again. The only way you as a patient will get a straight answer is if you have a doctor who's working for you. I'm a lawyer too. Lawyers work for their clients. You pay them an hourly. Gold Care, you become a member for $10. Then you have access when you need a doctor, and you just pay them hourly. You want 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes, you just pay them for their time. That's it. It's very clean, it's very transparent. You get a doctor's advice in your pocket. We want people with insurance to come to us or without insurance. If you don't have insurance, I will teach you exactly how to do like I do, be done with the insurance model, because it's constricting you. But if you have insurance, I almost want you to come to me more, because you need to get the straight answer. If your doctor tells you need X, Y, Z, is that true? Do you need X, Y, Z? So,
I mean, you're saying, going back to the COVID question, I know I'm bouncing all over the place. My mind's going, we were bashing Pfizer and all these companies, but you're saying it was really the insurance companies that were driving so much of that.
It was two different things. So Pfizer and Moderna had a financial interest in the shots. Right. But what is unknown is that the insurance companies had an interest in the mandates. okay? So
okay.
I am really...
So they had that all wrapped up, the mandates and then the show.
Correct, but everyone here who believes as we believe, who is very anti-tyranny and pro-freedom, is paying premiums to companies that are constricting your premiums. The reason I didn't have health insurance for 10 years ago is because I was an insider. I knew the drill. I knew what it was. I wanted maximum freedom, maximum ability to choose my doctor that I wanted, and a financial safety net. That's why you have insurance. Yeah. So I want to teach everybody to get off the fake, the belief that they need medical insurance to have financial safety net. They do not. We will teach you how at goldcare.com. And if you choose to stay with your insurance because you're used to it, it's mother's milk, you sort of understand it.
Sure.
No problem. Twice as important to have a Gold Care doctor who can give you advice when you need, and then you can go back to your insurance doctor as an informed consumer.
That's amazing.
It is.
It's not Simone Gold. What do you think, guys? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much.
For coming. I want to get you right into my interview with Michael Knowles. And they said, well, I don't really know that name. If you've been following the Dailywire and all these other outlets that bring new news to you that you probably never heard of 4 years ago, you will know that Michael Knowles is one of the voices in America speaking the truth. So let's go my interview with Michael Knowles and watch this. With me now, Michael Knowles, Dailywire. Thank you, sir, for being here on FlashPoint.
Thank you for having me. In the past several weeks, more than that, people in my chat keep saying, Michael, I want you to go on FlashPoint. That's no hyperbole. Has been consistent. I said, well, I don't know. You make it. Are you guys producers at FlashPoint? You do it. So I'm glad that we could connect here.
I'm glad we were able to check that box. Yeah, finally. All right, so let's talk about, Dailywire. What's the biggest challenge you think we're facing in the next 4 years?
At the Daily Wire, that I have to work with Shapiro, of course.
Well, of course. Other than that, that's the obvious one. But you guys are on the edge just like we are. So what do you see in the next 4 years?
The biggest challenge, really, in the next 4 months, I don't know, is going to be that Trump is going to have to do the deportations. I don't see any way he gets out of it. It is now a mainstream majority political issue. And the establishment media are going to use whatever last little juice they have to portray this man as Hitler 2.0. And it's going to be extremely difficult in the best of circumstances, but it has to happen. Following that, President Trump's next big effort is going to be to deport bureaucrats out of Washington, D.C. That's another massive undertaking. And he's got unified government, but herding House Republicans, it's like herding cats. So, he's got his work cut out for him, but I think that's what's immediately on the horizon.
Yeah, and what we're seeing already, of course, have you ever seen a president-elect have so much power before he ever takes office?
He just effectively is the president right now. I mean, the foreign leaders are really only talking to him.
They're lining up, talking to him, yeah.
Right.
All right, so when we look at media coverage, now, the world was very different 4 years ago, coming into COVID. We were, sliding into all of that stuff. Suddenly, America realized they don't have truth in media, truth in the news. Our eyes were open to the bias in the media, and henceforth things like Dailywire, FlashPoint, we got pushed to the top because of what we're being able to produce the truth. How has that changed the Dailywire the last several years?
Well, it feels nice to be trouncing MSNBC and other networks that used to be really prominent. I agree that people came to an awareness of what the establishment media are like, but a lot of people had already come to that awareness in years past. I think what we saw here was a technological change. The streaming just became so good and accessible, and cable news, people just cut the cords. So that was a technological help. And then there was a political help, which is that Elon Musk put his money where our mouths are. Yeah. So Elon, paid $44 billion for our opinions. And that really allowed a lot of the new media to flourish. And the new media are always right-wing, because the left has the old media. So there was a journalist from a liberal but extremely prominent establishment outlet. I won't say which network. And he said, Michael, do you think that the left will ever be able to do well in alternative media like the right has? And I said, you tell me, man. You don't need the alternative. You have the main one. People just are tuning you out because you lied to them, and they don't need you anymore.
Yeah, well, let's talk about mainstream, because now that will not be able to remain to be the excuse anymore. But with the, think about Tucker leaves, Fox, average of 3 million viewers a night, goes over to X and blows out the, every time he puts out there. You guys, what you're doing, what we're doing, it's going at a different level. Is there really a need for the mainstream media or conventional broadcast media?
Well, it's helpful in that it reaches certain people, median age about 157, but it does reach certain groups that are not totally tuned in. But I was speaking to a family member the other day, and I was contemplating, a suggestion that I go do something else in my career. And I said, I don't know, I really like my job. It's kind of fun. And he said, well, yes, of course. I mean, you're on YouTube. And I thought he was kind of joking. I said, well, anybody can be on YouTube. He said, no, like, that's all I watch now. I don't watch cable. He said, it's much better to be on YouTube, or now on X, than to be on, I don't know, CNBC or something. That is such a shift in prestige and influence. I don't think that I've even caught up with it yet.
No, I don't. And you mentioned it's nice to be trouncing MSNBC's numbers, but when their numbers are so low, it's kind of like wasn't a challenge. Like
damning with faint praise.
Yeah. So we'll take it, though. We'll take it. All right. So looking forward, where do you see the challenges on the conservative lines? We've been watching what's happened for the last 4 years with the conservatives. You're talking to people every day. You're out there all the time. Where do you think the challenge is for the Conservative Party going forward?
Well, the biggest challenge we're going to have is that we won so much.
Yeah.
So we brought in so many people who had been Democrats for decades. And we brought in, by my count, at least 17% of Democrat presidential primary candidates from the last 2 cycles. They voted for Trump this time. That's pretty insane. So that's all great. I welcome them and their support, and especially their votes. But there is a risk to a big tent, which is that you lose your objectives, you lose your sense of identity. So I think we need to accompany people, be gracious, hold them by the hand, but point out some non-negotiables. For instance, God exists. We can know that with certainty just from human reason, from the natural world. We can also know it from revelation and religious experience, but we can actually just know that. Our founding fathers just knew God existed. That's like the premise of the country, in the Declaration and the Constitution. So you have to know that. You have to know that in large part because we're made in the image of God. So if you don't know who God is, you don't know who you are. And now we don't know what a woman is. So that's part of why. You have to know what a man is. That way you can know what government is, because we have reason and we have will. So that means that we can make laws. It means that we can have a self-government. If we were chimpanzees, we couldn't do that. No. So that tells us something about government. And if you know something about government, that can tell you something about politics broadly, the fundamental unit of which is the family. It's not the individual, it's not a chimpanzee, it's the human family, which is the basic social unit and cannot be redefined, despite what the libs and the squishes say. Those things, as far as I can tell, are kind of non-negotiable. That's where you start. None of that is really policy. That's just the way to start thinking about policy. I think we need to ground our new fellow travelers in those realities.
That's true. Let's talk about the age groups. We're here at America Fest. I think this is the largest one yet. Today it's grown by leaps and bounds since we started coming here, like you guys. What do you attribute such growth across all generations?
Charlie Kirk was one of the most important guys to winning this election. It's kind of he was. Yeah. It was amazing. I was joking with the producer of his show, Andrew, when we were figuring out when I'd go on his show today. And he offered a time. I said, okay, I'll check the schedule. He said, Michael, I just want you to know it's a great honor to be invited on the show. Yeah. And he was joking. But I said, man, you're joking. It is. You're like a grand poobah of the GOP right now. It really worked. The TPUSA mission worked. It actually paid off. And on the right, there are so many nonprofits that promise the sun, the moon, the sky, and they raise zillions of dollars, and they do nothing. And it's just a way to buy a nice apartment or something. And that's not what TPUSA did. You know, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So why are people jazzed to be here? Because TPUSA matters.
It does. What about, let's talk about faith, because faith in America has grown by leaps and bounds. And we're seeing a resurgence of faith in younger generations, in the, you know, actually more than than maybe their parents' generation.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to?
Like on a clock, the pendula sometimes swing back, and young people today have been raised largely without religion.
Right.
Even you know, I was raised a cradle Catholic. I had some good catechists as a child, but catechesis was just weak generally in that era. You know, lots of electric guitars and smiley, happy, clappy stuff, and that doesn't give you the richness, the profundity of the faith, and people fall away, as I did for 10 years. So people now are raised basically without religion. Their religion is liberalism, indifferentism, you do you, skepticism, we can't know anything about God, or whatever. Yeah. And people are finding that is unsatisfying, it is making them miserable, and it's preventing them from living their lives. It's preventing us from drawing conclusions about anything, including what a woman is. So I think the recent return to reverence, orthodoxy, serious religion, I think that's just the natural consequence, because reality is going to reassert itself in the end. It might take a while, but it'll happen.
It will happen. All right, let's fast forward 4 years. We're about out of time, but I want to fast forward 4 years. Trump's leaving a wonderful economy, a wonderful America, strong again. The obvious choice is to see J.D. Vance step in and take that. Where do you think America will be in 4 years?
Well, it's unclear. I mean, I love J.D. Vance. I was absolutely elated when he was picked as the VP candidate. He was top of the list. However, if I were J.D. Vance, I would hope that some of the other nominees for the cabinet positions were just total nobodies. And one of the problems right now is Trump is picking too many solid people, like really good people. So I think there will be a real primary in 2028. I mean, the fact that Rubio, for instance, is Secretary of State, he's already run for president. You know he wants to run for it again. But even the rest, Kristi Noem at DHS, I don't know, the list goes on and on and on. So it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have too many people who are vying for the future of the party. But to give JD a little bit of his due, and to give the movement that he's tapped into a little bit of its due, I think the future of the party is going to be less throw your hands in the air, libertarianism, we can't legislate morality, and it's going to be more focused on things like virtue and on the common good. You know, I think we've focused on procedural norms for the past 10, 20 years, to the almost exclusion of substantive goods. And I think people want to talk about substantive goods again. You know, the first precept of the law is do good and avoid evil. And the skeptics and the squishes, they say, well, everyone has their own good, you know, who's to decide? And you think, like, I don't know, guys. To me, it's not the same to do good and avoid evil as it is to do evil and avoid good, which is what the left wants. We actually can figure out the difference between those things, and we got to act on it.
Yeah, we do got to act on it. All right, Michael Knowles, Dailywire, thank you, sir, so much.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you to all of you.
Yeah. Welcome back to FlashPoint. Officer Tatum, great to see you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so last time we talked, we were in the middle of everything from people getting canceled, people getting not being able to speak freely, freedom of speech being attacked. Now we've got a new president-elect coming in.
Thank God.
Have things changed with what you're seeing in America yet?
Well, I think to a certain degree, right? I think that things had already changed, and I just caught up with it looking at the election. Because I didn't really think the election was going to go the way it went. I knew that Trump was going to win, but I didn't think he was going to whoop him the way he did, which tells me that the people have woken up, and when they given an opportunity to have a voice, they spoke. And they gave Donald Trump the victory. So I feel like a part of me felt that people were changing. People in my family, other people that I've talked to, see comments on social media. My social media have grown a lot. So with that in mind, I felt like people possibly were changing. But the propaganda is so crazy that I figured that maybe people would be consumed by that when it comes election time.
Well, and I agree with you. We were believing it. Well, it looks good, but nobody wanted to say, I think we got it. So, which is probably a good thing that we kept pushing all the way to the end. But let's talk about when do you think was the transitional moment or the flashpoint when things changed and that you think Trump got pushed over the edge?
That's a good question. I think there's a few historically. Yeah. One of the major ones was when Joe Biden dropped out, because they had gone on for I don't know how long, saying that Joe Biden was competent, he was okay, that we're all crazy by thinking that he's on his last leg. And then you see him drop out after getting COVID or whatever the case may be, and then they just install Kamala Harris. And then therefore people are saying, that's not democracy. Nobody voted for her. They installed this woman. And people begin to wake up. The biggest one of all, I think, was during COVID. When people were getting locked down, the misinformation that was happening, and they had an opportunity to stay home, not being at work, looking at social media, not the mainstream media, and they've been able to get information that they wouldn't have normally gotten, especially when it came to Joe Rogan with ivermectin and things like that. People began to just see it as it unfolded in real time.
I hadn't really thought about going back to the COVID, but yeah, that was a real eye-opener for a lot of people, finally to see what's really going on. What about another fence signpost along the way was July 13th with the assassination attempt.
Oh, yeah.
Up there in Pennsylvania.
I don't know how I forgot to mention that one. That was a huge one as well. It inspired me to see Donald Trump put his fist in the air, stand up strong for the American people after these lunatics tried to take his life. And I had already been a Trump supporter. I already was going to vote for him. There was nothing going to stop me from doing that. But that just made me feel like it's really us against them. Because them trying to kill him is not just him. They're trying to kill the future of America and trying to kill our vote. And for Donald Trump to stand strong and make it through that after all he's been through, I said, we got to go even harder for him.
Yeah, and then right after that was the Republican National Convention. We were there, but it totally overtook the whole convention because he shows up with the bandage on his ear, and I'm like, man, if this guy, if he can't win this time, this seems like a push for sure. But so obviously we're glad to see that. But you mentioned something about when you talk about culture, you're referring to about things changing. We still have an issue, most recently with a shooting right there in that Christian school.
The one thing that bothers me about that shooting is that I don't think that Christian hatred get enough attention. If you don't like people in Islam, they call you Islamophobic. If you say things negatively about Jewish people, that's anti-Semitism. But what do you call it when you hate Christians? And we have seen two radicalized, either leftist feminists or leftist transgender that went into a Christian school and shot children there and killed them in cold blood. And in this situation, obviously, a teacher had gotten shot. And I wish that it would get more attention, because the radical left and the lunatics in feminism, they hate God and they hate anything that God is associated with. To watch them go out and, watch this person go out and shoot up their school and not get the attention that some of these other shooters have gotten is a tale to me.
And I'm glad you brought up the transgender shooter, because that was brushed under the carpet. I mean, where's this manifesto she wrote? Where is that at? And why haven't we not seen it? Where is, and I think that's what's the most encouraging, is people are pushing for they're asking the right questions they weren't asking before. So let's talk about where we go from here. What is it that conservative Christians need to do? What do we need to be concentrating on the next 4 years, especially the next 4?
Yeah, I think the thing that we should be focused on mostly is our relationship with God.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's the priority.
Amen.
That's the main thing that's going to get you from one year to the next, is getting a real relationship. The reason that we're not just stomping these leftists out every single election is because Christians aren't activated in churches to actually vote for the right things. If you look at statistical data, a lot of Christians don't even vote. They're not even participating in the election. You go to churches, the pastor is, literally trying to evade any chance he can to talk about abortion. What are we doing as Christians? I'm not that concerned by and large about people that don't have faith. I'm mostly concerned about the people that do have faith. Are we activating? So activating your faith, getting closer to God, getting a personal relationship with God, I think is going to be the starting point in us moving in the right direction.